Let's talk about Olive Tree People's brand new no makeup line called Olive Rose. I'm gonna give you my honest review and feedback on the product, as well as do a little tutorial of it. Now, fair warning, I have a 15-month-old wandering around in the background, and he just learned the word uh-oh, so we're gonna be hearing a lot of that in the background. So I have been using Olive Tree People's skincare line called Oliveda since March of this year. So it's been roughly about 9 months, and I have absolutely loved this skincare line. I cannot say enough good things about it. So when they announced that they were going to be releasing this skin tint, I had no doubt that the quality was going to be absolutely amazing. I just wasn't 100% sure if it was going to be something that I personally was going to end up using and loving, just because I have tried other like no makeup lines before and other like skin serums and skin tints, and while they've been fine, I just haven't loved them. I've always worn them and then felt like I needed to go in and put my actual makeup on afterwards. So I kind of just went into it with low expectations as far as me using the products for myself. The very first time I tried it, my initial thought was, okay, this is gonna be essentially exactly what I kind of anticipate. It's gonna be a good quality serum or skin tint, but it's not necessarily gonna be something that I'm gonna use. But then as I experimented with it a little bit more and played around with it on my own skin, I have actually come to really love it. And what I think the difference is with Olive Rose compared to like other skin tints that I have used in the past is that with Olive Rose, I feel like I still have the ability to wear eyeshadow and lip stuff and it doesn't look weird or out of place. Whereas when I have used other brands of like no makeup type things, I have felt like it looks weird because it looks like I'm not wearing any makeup, but then all of a sudden my eyes are done up and it looks off. So I either have to wear nothing on my eyes, nothing on my lips to have that fully natural look, or I have to wear my normal makeup. Whereas with Olive Rose, I can do a mix and I love that. And what I mean by that is that Olive Rose will give a very natural look. It won't look like you're wearing makeup. It'll have a natural dewy finish that makes your skin just kind of look enhanced and better than it does on its own, but it doesn't look off when you pair it with other makeup products. So like if I add a little bit of blush or I have eyeshadow on or add some lipstick, it's not gonna look like something's off in terms of what's going on my face. Like it still looks good paired with other makeup. You can wear it by itself, but it can still be paired with other things and still have a beautiful finish. And that is essentially what sold me on it. I also love the fact that it is a skin tint that is infused with skincare. So when you're wearing it, you're actually like making your skin better at the same time. So before I apply Olive Rose, obviously I do my skincare routine, which I have just done. That is the best prep that you can do prior to using Olive Rose or any makeup, obviously. One of the things I love is that even without putting any makeup on yet, I just feel like you can already tell a difference in my skin and the glow that the skincare by itself has given me. I will be sure to list out and link what I used as my skincare in prep prior to putting on the Olive Rose. So now let's actually dive into the application of Olive Rose. So right now, Olive Rose has 18 different shades from, super light to super dark and everything in between. They are going to be coming out with more shades though, because they want to be as inclusive as possible. I believe the plan right now is to have a total of 34 shades, and more of these shades are going to be released at the beginning of 2025. As far as picking out your shades go, Olive Tree People does have a color matching quiz on their Olive Rose website, but what you will find is that because it's a skin tint instead of foundation, it is a lot more forgiving and you have a lot more wiggle room to play around with the colors. I also recommend getting more than one shade, and I'm gonna tell you why. I have been an artist with Saint for 7.5 years, and I have color matched tens of thousands of faces during that time. And one of the things that I always recommend to somebody when they are getting color matched to the makeup is to get at least 3 different highlight shades. And the highlight shades are essentially the main foundation, like the color that you wear to match your skin tone. And when I recommend 3 different shades, initially people are kind of like, you're crazy. But here's why. Because our faces are not one single color. That would be a very one-dimensional flat look on our faces. You'll notice that like on my own skin, I am a lot lighter through here, whereas I have a lot of redness in my cheeks and on the tip of my nose and even here on my chin. I have darker areas underneath my eyes. And so there is a lot of color variation on my face naturally. So if I were to go in with a single shade, it wouldn't actually match my skin tone. It would match parts of my skin tone, but not all of it because there's so much variation happening in my face. So a single shade is gonna make a very flat and one-dimensional look, and it's not gonna look natural. And the whole point of wearing something like the Olive Rose Skin Tint is to look natural, to look like you're not wearing any makeup. But if you're wearing a solid flat color on your face, it's not gonna look natural. It is going to end up looking like makeup. Now, people's reservations for getting more than one shade is usually for one of 2 reasons, or possibly both. So the first one is obviously the cost. They figure that if they're buying more than one shade, it's gonna cost more, which is true up front. But you will end up spending the same or even saving money long-term by getting more than one shade, and I'll explain how that is. If I get a shade that's gonna match my overall skin tone, I would be focusing on these areas of my face. And that shade is gonna be kind of like that middle tone shade for my skin. But I do have darker areas, like I mentioned before, like my cheeks and the tip of my nose and my chin. And so if I'm going in with this lighter shade in these areas, a shade that's too light for these areas, if I wanna get proper coverage there, I'm gonna have to apply more product than is necessary to try to kind of mask the redness that's there. And because the color doesn't actually match, it's going to end up kind of making my redness still peek through, and it's gonna be very frustrating. So I'm gonna end up applying a lot more product than necessary to try to address the fact that I have different color variations in my skin tone. The other hesitation some people have is just thinking it's gonna be harder, because obviously applying one color all over is going to be a little bit different than applying 3 shades in very specific places. But the thing is, it really isn't that complicated. You can naturally see on your skin where you have darker areas versus lighter areas, and then you just apply the colors accordingly and then allow them to kind of marry into each other naturally. So it's a very easy process overall. If there is a learning curve for you, it's going to be very slight, but I promise you, you will be so much happier with the results. So I'm going to start with my darker areas. That's usually what I do, is I do my color correcting areas first. So I'm going to go in with a slightly darker shade. This is the number 4 in Olive Rose. Before I open the bottle and apply, I always like to give it a really good shake beforehand, just to make sure that everything is mixed together and nothing has kind of settled and separated in the bottle while it's been sitting there. Now, I have also noticed, because I have worked with like all the different shades and played around with them, I've noticed some of them tend to be a little bit of a thicker consistency than others. Some of them tend to be a little bit more runny. And I think it just has to do with the formulations. Obviously, they're gonna be slightly different from each other because they're different colors and things. And so that's my best guess as to why that is the case, but they all still work just as beautifully. So just kind of be prepared and be aware that that might be something you run into. I am just gonna take the dropper and I am just gonna apply probably like 2 different dots of this. I don't need a ton of product because I'm just concentrating it in a small area, because again, I'm doing my color correcting darker shade just to kind of cover some of the redness on my cheeks. Now, this one I can tell is one of the slightly thicker consistencies because when I placed it on, it has stayed in place. It hasn't dripped or moved at all, which is really nice. But let me actually show you. This is the 03. This is my lighter shade. Sometimes I'll mix it with the 02, but this is my lighter shade, and I think this is probably the runniest of the different skin tints that I have as far as its consistency goes. Like sometimes I'll almost notice like a clear like liquid that kind of drips down the side. Not there, that was not it, but it does do that occasionally. But if I place this on my skin, you'll notice that it just kind of tends to drip a little bit versus like up here, it's just staying in place. So that kind of shows you what I mean by the difference in the consistencies of them. But again, even though this one's runnier, it still works great. Same with this one, even though it's a little bit thicker, it also still works great. Now, you can use a brush, you can use a makeup sponge, you can use your fingers. All of them are great for applying it. I personally have found that I prefer using my fingers. I find with a brush, if you're gonna use one, it has to be super, super dense because otherwise you're gonna lose a lot of product in the bristles. And I just find I don't love that except for when I'm doing a little bit of blending, when I do some contour and bronzer, which I'll show you in a little bit. But otherwise, I actually like to use my fingers. I feel like it gives me more control. I feel like I don't lose any product obviously that way. And I feel like it allows me to do a little bit more of a concentrated amount of product in different areas if I want it to be a little bit of a fuller coverage, because there is some buildable coverage with this product. So let me show you. I'm just gonna go ahead, I'm gonna blend in very gently. And sometimes I'll even kind of like stipple, like just to make sure I'm getting the product concentrated in the area and making sure that I'm getting the coverage that I want. And then down here, because it's a little bit more liquidy, I tend to do this one, spread it around a little bit more, a little bit less stippling currently, but I will kind of spread this kind of up into this area because I'm a little lighter here, just kind of trying to go with, again, my natural coloring. Okay, so I have done just this half of my face and notice the difference between the two sides. So this side, it's more even, it's more balanced, it has this beautiful glowing finish, but it still looks really natural. It doesn't look like I'm wearing makeup. Like if you were to just look at my skin, you would think it was my skin. You wouldn't think that I was wearing anything. And that is what I love about Olive Rose, is that it just gives such a natural finish, but it does make a difference. It's not some huge stark contrast, but it's just enough to enhance what's already there. Now notice how putting the darker shade here doesn't look weird at all. It looks very natural for my face because I am darker in this area and they just kind of blend together. So you wouldn't notice that I've put on two different shades, but it really does make a big difference. Because we've talked about it, let's just go ahead and put the lighter shade all over on this side and we'll kind of do a comparison so you can see what I mean. So I'm just gonna put this lighter shade all over on this side. So this is the shade that I put just down in this area where my skin tone's lighter. And I'm just gonna blend this in so you can see what I mean. So I'm not sure how much it shows on camera, but you can see a difference in the two sides. To me, the biggest difference I can see is that this side looks a little bit more defined and a little bit more polished, whereas this one looks a little bit more like raw. It doesn't look like I have added or enhanced anything as much on this side, whereas this one, even though it still looks natural, it has a little bit more of an airbrushed effect. So I'm just gonna go ahead, I'm gonna add this number 4 to this side. I'm also gonna put just a little bit right here on the tip of my nose and a little bit here on the tip of my chin, because these are the other areas that I mentioned that are a little bit more red in nature and just have a little bit of darker pigmentation. So I'm just gonna very gently just kind of rub that in. Again, it doesn't take a lot of product, it's just a tiny bit, and I'm just gonna kind of distribute it around nice and even until it's giving me the coverage and the look that I want. Okay, do you see that difference in coverage compared to what it looked like before? Like this one looks a lot more polished and airbrushed now, just like this side. Now, if you want to do a little bit of brightening, you can take a lighter shade. So this is the shade 1, and you can take just a little bit of this. And this one's one of the thicker ones. I'm actually going to, I think, mix it with the 3, which is my main shade, because I feel like this one is a little bit yellowy. So I like to kind of tone it a little bit to the color that's all over my face. So it's still going to be lighter and brighter. But then I'm just gonna dab it in some of the areas where I like to kind of have a brightening effect. So that's gonna be like in the eye area. Just a minute. He is getting very impatient. So I'm just gonna put it here. And then I like to put just a little bit down the center of my nose. Just kind of like where you'd put like concealer or highlight, just to kind of give you that added pop of color, just for a little added dimension. But do you see now how the finish, again, it just looks so soft and natural and just kind of like an airbrush filter appearance on the skin, but it still looks like skin. It doesn't look like I'm wearing this heavy foundation. It's just very light and natural looking. Now, I could just leave it as is and it doesn't look weird. Even though my eyes are done up, it doesn't look off that my face has this more natural glow and my eyes are a little bit more elaborately done. And that's what I love about Olive Rose. But then you also have the option of going in with some added color. So you can add some blush, which Olive Rose is actually going to be coming out with some blush tint at the beginning of the year, which I am super excited about. But you can go with blush, you can go with contour, you can go with bronzer, whatever you want to do to kind of finish off the look. And that's usually what I do. But I'm actually going to show you how you can still use the Olive Rose Skin Tint to add in contour and bronzer. And then, like I said, they are going to have a skin tint that's a blush color, or blush colors, I should say, coming out at the beginning of the year. So technically you could do all of it using the Olive Rose Skin Tint, which is really cool. So starting with contour, I am going to use one of their darker skin tint shades. Obviously, I'm very fair skinned, but I'm going to use one of their darker shades, and I am going to use just a little bit of it. I've chosen a shade that has cooler undertones because with contour, you want to have a cooler undertone because it's supposed to be mimicking shadows. So I'm going to go in with a darker shade. I'm going to shake it up, like I said before, and then I am going to go in and I am just gonna place like literally like 2 tiny drops. I'll probably actually spread this over to this side because I need so little of this. So then I am just gonna go ahead, I'm gonna press this in and just kind of create a line with it just like this. And I'm just gonna very softly kind of spread it out, and then in just a second I'm gonna use a brush to blend in a little bit more. So I'm just gonna use the smudge brush from Saint, and I'm just gonna very gently go over it and just kind of blur along the edges to give it a little bit more of a softer finish and to kind of pull it up into my cheeks a little bit so it looks a little bit more natural, and like I said, just kind of marries itself into the other skin tint that I applied earlier and into the rest of my skin. Can you see how it just kind of adds that little bit of definition and a little bit of enhancement to this side of my face? And because it has a little bit more warmth than the normal contour that I use, I feel like it gives a little bit of that bronzing effect without actually adding any other color. I could go in with like a shade that's almost in between, like one that's warmer and that's in between my normal tone and what I use for contour to give me a little bit more of like a bronzing effect. And I would probably put that right up here. In fact, I'll just show you that as well. But you can just see how, like I said, using different shades of the skin tint can actually create different effects on your face, which I love. So I'm just taking a drop of the 8 and I'm just gonna put it right here on the high parts of my cheek, right along that cheekbone. And I'm just gonna kind of blend it in very softly with my fingers, just kind of stippling it. And it just adds a subtle glow, a little bit of contrast, and just gives that kind of sun-kissed finish. Very subtle, very natural looking, but like I said, it just kind of gives a little bit more of that polished, finished look. So I was originally gonna add in some of my other products that I typically use, like my blush and my bronzer and things, but this actually looks so good. I'm just gonna leave well enough alone. Like there's no need to. And that's what I was talking about when I said how much I really like Olive Rose, because you saw just how little product I applied, and yet the finish here, like I said, it still looks very natural. It looks like my skin. It's very breathable, very lightweight, very silky finish, and yet it has that enhancement to my skin and it goes well. I can still wear like my eyeshadows and have a little bit more like of a makeup look and not feel like I'm having to kind of go out looking kind of very raw, if that makes sense. On my lips, I just have, you know, Oliveda's F75, they're like lip balm. And so it's a very natural look besides my eyes, and yet it all still blends together. Now, Olive Rose is not going to be for everyone, and I 100% get that. It definitely is something that, like I said, it's a lightweight. It's not going to be a full coverage type thing. You can get some decent coverage, as you can see from my own application, but it's not going to be a full coverage thing. And if you're somebody with like majorly problematic skin or somebody who just likes that full coverage look, you're probably not going to love Olive Rose. But I do feel like there are a lot of people like myself who are gonna like it more than they anticipate, and they're gonna be very pleasantly surprised by the finish, by how it looks in terms of feeling natural, but also going so well with what they're used to. So I'm really excited for people to try this. I think it is such a good product. And the fact that, like I said, it's actually benefiting and helping your skin along the way just blows my mind. Remember, this obviously was a full Olive Rose tutorial, but remember, you don't have to just wear Olive Rose. I often mix my Saint stuff with my Olive Rose stuff, and I love the finish that that gives. Today, I'm just wearing Olive Rose. There are some days where I just wear Saint, and I love that. You can definitely mix in makeup that you love and just use it alongside Olive Rose, which is amazing. So it doesn't have to be a complete disregard of some of the products that you love. It can just be something that you add to your routine. And like I said, mix things up a little bit and just try out some different looks and just see what you come up with, because I think you are going to fall in love with it. A really important thing to remember is that your makeup is only gonna ever look as good as your skin. So if you are wanting to be able to use something like this and get this kind of finish, start using good skincare if you're not already. And obviously, I will shout it from the rooftops, but Oliveda is by far the best skincare I have ever used. Like the transformations I've seen in my own skin, in the skin of the people that I have, you know, shared it with, it just still is mind-blowing to me. It is so, so good, and I cannot recommend it enough. So honestly, if you haven't tried the skincare, start there. Start getting your skin to a really healthy place, and then start using Olive Rose as a way to kind of give yourself that natural finish. And like I said, the two kind of just go hand in hand, and they just are the perfect pairing, creating this very synergistic, amazing result. So I'm gonna go ahead, I will link everything that I use. I will link my skincare quiz, I will link the Olive Rose color match quiz, and then if you have any questions about any of this, please don't hesitate to reach out and ask me. I'm here to help in whatever ways that I can. I love being able to help people kind of gain their confidence and enhance their natural beauty through skincare and through makeup, and doing it in the easiest and most effective way possible. Now, there's also a business side to Olive Tree people, and if that is something that you're interested in, whether it's with the skincare or the makeup or both, if you're interested in the business side, I would love to chat with you more about it. I've been with this company now since March, and I have genuinely enjoyed it. It's been a very special and unique experience, and I would absolutely love to chat with you more about it. If you decide it's something that would be a good fit for you, I would love to have you join my team and work alongside you in being able to build a business of your own and being able to help you generate an income for yourself and for your family. So definitely reach out. I will link some information about the opportunity below, but like I said, reach out, let's chat, and let's see if this would be a good fit. And I would love to work with you if you decide that it is.